my family because my mom said that I have to do this.
Because I promised my dead mom.
Yeah, I must go back to my shanty full of assholes.
Yes.
Welcome to Recapping Romantasy, hot takes on hot literature. Who are we?
We are me, Emma.
I am Tabitha.
And I am Maura. Today we are covering A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which I think it's kind of important to kind of get into the how and the why of books before we get into talking about them. So just let's dive into this. Sarah J. Maas kind of came into the world in 2012, but
she was born in 2012.
she became known to us,
fully formed, born out of the head of Zeus,
as the woman that she is in 2012. But ACOTAR came along a little after that, and she published ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses, the very first in the series, in May of 2015 by Bloomsbury. At the time of its publication, it was comped, which comparatively to Graceland by Christian Kishore, and Game of Thrones, which by this time pretty much ruled fantasy with an iron fist. I would think at this point.
I read Graceling when I was living overseas, and I had no idea that it was popular at all. I thought it was just some random YA book.
No, it was super popular. Graceling was like a really big YA fantasy at the time.
I must have been living under a rock because I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, no, it was a popular
It was pretty
one.
boring.
Oh, okay. That might be why.
I mean, it was fine. It was a little boring.
I would just like to say I'm really sick right now. I'm coming out of being sick. I'm not diseasing everyone here, but
No, she's leaning in real close to that
Yeah,
mic.
like we assume. We don't know.
so sorry I sound gross.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about this. So like I really do think that ACOTAR is kind of like the woman's answer to Game of Thrones, but we can talk about that later. So YA fantasy has completely taken over for YA dystopian at this point in the timeline. The popularity has shifted dramatically to fantasy, and as of December of 2023, ACOTAR has attained about 2 million ratings on Goodreads with a 4.2 star average rating. So that's insane by itself. It's this big. So ACOTAR for sure is the darling of book talk, which has probably driven much of its continued popularity. Yeah. Because 2015 was a while back. I think we would all agree.
Yeah, we're almost 10 years out.
I know. So I know the second I got on TikTok, I was basically drowning in ACOTAR content, pretty much against my will. I had no idea what any of this was about. So I eventually succumbed to the siren lure that is Sarah J. Maas, and I read it at the beginning of 2023, and then I read it again at the end of 2023. So I really bookended my year there, and then I forced Tabitha to read it, and then we forced Emma to read it. And now here we are talking about it. Also good news, it's been optioned for TV for Hulu by Ronald D. Moore, who's the same dude behind Battlestar Galactica and Outlander. How do we feel about that?
I mean, I have an extra hot take here, which is I don't think it should be live action. I think like unless you can do the CGI really well, and I feel like there's gonna be a lot of CGI in here, it's gonna look bad. It's gonna look like super cheesy, and I know people have feelings about anime and like animated adult shows, but I just think it would be better. It would just be easier. And then you don't have anyone saying like the person who's casted as Reese like isn't hot enough, blah blah blah. Is not how I pictured him, blah blah blah. Because he's a cartoon, so like you can do it everyone else. Sorry.
I totally agree. I don't think I really.
Wait, I'm gonna show you an image that I found on Pinterest.
Okay.
Yeah,
which is what I think.
Because I
fantastic for a podcast. Show us the image.
I'll describe it. It's like kind of like it's not in the anime style.
It looks like, what's that series on Netflix with the dragon?
Oh, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I know what you mean.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, sorry.
I just don't think anybody's going to be able to. Oh, yeah, see? Yeah.
Don't you think it could work?
I think an anime type of situation would work just fine. Because I don't think anybody can even possibly be Riz.
No,
if you don't have
is
the
it
budget.
Riz or is it Reese?
Reese.
Okay, we're just going to do whatever we want.
I will just say Reese.
Okay.
It's Reese.
No, we can say whatever. I mean, pronunciations are up to us. She didn't put a pronunciation guide in her first book, so that's on her.
I mean, if you're not going to have the budget of a Game of Thrones to make like magical creatures, then it's just going to end up looking cheesy. So you have to kind of decide what kind of cheesy do you want.
Yeah. Like as we talked about, if Fourth Wing becomes a TV show, like it's gonna be like Riverdale. It's gonna be like a CW show. It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be great.
And I have to say that I'm going to be here for whatever they put out.
I'm gonna watch it.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm
said
going to
this
watch
before,
nothing.
I'm gonna watch
They
it.
should really just do it like straight Riverdale, and then if you just like see the guys from certain angles, they have wings. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, right.
Or
How do you
like
know-
maybe a better comparison is Teen Wolf. Like
I've never watched it.
Oh, okay. Well, you're missing out. Some of like the CGI in Teen Wolf was okay, and then they had like pretty good like prosthetics, I guess is the word, what for like their teeth and their like half wolf bodies. Like it was fine. But like I just think of in ACOTAR when they talk about like the boogie or whatever, like that's just like air and
It's air.
yeah. Like how do you CGI that? Like
It's just
put
like
a fog machine in.
No, I think there'll be a fog machine, and then there'll be like a disconcerting voice floating
Yeah.
through. And I think it's possible because I mean, yeah, we've all watched the Vampire Diaries. We've
Yeah,
been there
that's
for
true.
all of that, and I swear to God, like you can do a lot. You can get a lot of mileage out of just ripping some dude's shirt off.
Yeah,
right.
that is
Like,
very
Like I said, I feel like that works if you have like a sense of humor about what you're doing. Like, not to bring this up in literally every conversation I have every single day of my life, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, they basically just used like latex masks and puppets.
Yeah,
but
no.
it was great.
yeah, I've been thinking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer a lot lately as I train TikTok to give me more Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Yeah, I
content,
need to
and
watch
I'm
that.
looking at like the CGI or lack of it. Yeah, they can get away with a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, they don't know what's going on with the show. I think they
No.
have a few scripts written. I don't think they have anybody slated to be an actor yet. But
Oh,
you
we
know,
would know. If
Oh,
they
we would
did.
totally know. Yeah,
People
but
would
I mean,
shut up about it if they were.
But like with the
casted.
strikes that happened last year,
They would already be breaking into that man's house.
Yeah. Edits would already be made.
Okay, so anyway, ACOTAR, the first book of the series, is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. It's also a retelling of a fairy tale called East of the Sun and West of the Moon, and as well as Tam Lin, which
Yeah, Tam Lin, you get it?
So Sarah J. Maas wrote the first draft in 5 weeks, supposedly, which, go Sarah,
That's
fast
crazy.
drafting that shit, like, good for you. It has existed in this weird gray area between YA and adult since its publication, because New Adult didn't really exist in 2015, and arguably it still doesn't really exist. It
Yeah,
does,
if you're
but
not
it doesn't.
aware,
Oh, okay.
New Adult is a genre that basically means erotica, but is like a softer way to say it.
Yeah, it's like
The
romantasy.
It's
porn of
clearly
books.
meant for people who are like interested in YA novels, but with more quote unquote adult content.
Or
But
spice, as you might say.
Yeah.
Spice.
when I worked at the public library, I made a case that we should just call it erotica and stop beating around the bush.
Yeah. So it's just basically young adult with sex involved.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time for New Adult to get like a foothold in the publishing industry, I think. And there's still a lot of fighting about whether or not it exists. It clearly does, but also they have a really hard time figuring that out. But it's weird. We'll roll with it. Moving on to the fact that it is the center of recent book banning campaigns. So ACOTAR has really been central to Florida school districts banning of the whole series. Yeah, there was an obscenity charge levied against the sequel. Yeah, and it
I mean, fine.
yeah. Okay. So they were trying to ban it from being sold in Virginia Barnes and Nobles and available in school libraries. The case was dismissed, which means
Thank
we
God.
didn't get to watch Sarah J. Maas take the stand to argue why her books are not obscene, which is kind of sad for the internet, but
Yeah,
probably
that would've
good for
been
the
badass.
First Amendment. Yeah. And I have to say, I listened to a lot of playlists on Spotify for my reread. We'll link that maybe in the show notes.
Pretty much every single book I ever read, I check to see if there's a playlist for it because there is every single time.
Yeah, that ambiance, you really gotta like it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's crack open this book, shall we? Yeah, let's dive in. We begin ACOTAR with Feyre Archeron, who is out there hunting in winter. She is very woe, and she's worried too, because like there are giant wolves on the prowl and strange folk are wandering around in the woods, so she's super nervous. And this is because she lives in a very small village that's near the border with Prythian, which I basically think of as fairyland.
I mean, that's literally
That's
what it is.
Yes, yes. So she's gangly, she's skinny, her family is starving. She spots a doe and she goes all mouth-watery. She's like, a doe. She's gonna shoot this doe and she's gonna take it down and bring it to her family, but a wolf appears and it's basically the size of a pony.
Okay, which doesn't seem like a large, like ponies are not that big and wolves in general are pretty big. Like,
Okay.
why,
Yeah.
like why wouldn't they pick a bigger horse?
Okay, as as the resident horse person.
I was going to say, I've not been near ponies in a long time, so I could be wrong.
Ponies can range from very small to almost horse size. Yeah, like a pony is like about 14 hands tall at its largest weight. Yeah, so that's, and like a horse is like about 15. So,
well, see, that's the problem. She just says pony, and she doesn't define what.
So you don't really know how tall pony is in this instance, but it could be the size of a horse for people who are not like well known in what ponies are.
She should have just said a Volkswagen.
Yeah, just pick a
the
car.
The size of a Volkswagen. So, okay, she sees this wolf. It is unnaturally large and unnaturally stealthy, apparently. I don't really know what that means. She immediately thinks something's up with this wolf. She gets out her special iron ash arrow, and she shoots that wolf, and it dies. She tells herself it's just a wolf, and that is not a big deal. But in the back of her head, she's like, I have a suspicion that this was probably not just a wolf. But, you know, the wolf had already killed the doe, and she really wanted the doe, and she really needed that wolf out of the way.
Yeah.
In the back of her mind, she's also like, if this is a fairy, big deal. Like, I am going to take it down regardless. So.
Yeah. And then once she takes, like, the doe is dead and also the wolf's dead, and then she skins them both. She carries them both. Well, she carries the wolf pelt and the deer. And, like,
yeah, she field dresses the wolf.
Yeah. For someone who's malnourished and, like, you know, skin and bones, she fucking carries that deer really far. Like, I think she said like 2 miles or several miles. She's just casually just lugging it across her shoulders.
Yeah, so she skins that wolf and she like basically wraps the doe in the wolf skin, and then she just hauls that stuff back home. Like she's like, I am the provider of this family, and goddamn, I'm going to do this. Which, you know, good for her.
Also,
but
did you notice that this map was just the UK?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can totally talk about
the
map.
Game of Thrones map is also just the UK. Like, do we just not want to focus on another country ever?
The human lands on this map are basically like Suffolk and the coast of England, and then everything above it up into Scotland is the fairy lands.
Yeah, and then Ireland, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, it really just is the UK.
It is definitely 100% the UK. They're basically 8 years out of poverty at this point. So let's talk about the sisters. She comes home and she is met with her terrible sisters. Elaine, who is the oldest of, no wait, she's not. She's the second. She's the middle child. And so they're 8 years out of poverty. But for Elaine, this hasn't stopped her from wanting to look lovely. She is just beauty up and down. But also she's kind of an idiot. I don't know if anybody else thinks this. But
I mean, she just seems like naive.
She seems extremely naive, perhaps delusional, maybe a little simple. It's hard to know with her in this book going in. She's not cruel. She's just mostly kind of an empty husk. Like she wants to be pretty. And there's nothing really going on behind that. She's just a pretty girl. Who,
I like dresses. I like painting my nails.
Yeah.
I like boys. That's it. That's all I got from her.
That's what I've got from Elaine.
Yeah, almost like the author didn't flesh her out because she didn't think she'd be relevant.
So then you have Nesta, who is the eldest sister, who is, quote, born with a sneer on her face, unquote. She's basically, she dismisses praise for others, is generally a giant bitch, and resents her dad for losing their wealth. She's really just completely awful in all ways. Is when they start off this, like she's like, I want new boots, no, I want a new cloak, and then everybody starts fighting over what they're going to get out of this deer. So.
Yeah, there is nothing redeeming about Nesta. She is just a bitch through and through, and it's such a turn later in this series when they try to make me care about her, because why?
Yeah, that is a good question. Like,
also,
why?
Like, I have a sister, and we get in fights and stuff, but, like, I would never just...
Like I said, she's, like, beyond mean. Yeah. She's not just cold. It's not just that she can't read the room. She, like, goes out of her way to cause conflict.
Yeah. She does. That's a good way to put her. And then you have Dad, who
the worst.
Creditors, they used to be rich, this family, I should mention. And creditors beat him into disability, so his leg is non-functional now. And this beating only stopped, I should mention, because Farah soiled herself and then vomited everywhere. Which
she just throws
so
up
many.
I know.
In this series.
That is like quite an image. And I know she was maybe 11 or 10 when this happened, but that's still like, wow, that's pretty intense. So now Dad basically makes cute wooden animals and has totally given up.
He just whittles in his free time.
He whittles animals and he sits by the fire and waits for Farah to bring him food that she has been hunting out in the woods for the past 8 years, essentially, and that sucks for her. And she clearly has a lot of PTSD from this, which we're gonna get into later. But here we are. This is the starting point. The sisters argue about who's gonna get the money from this wolf pelt. obviously, because they don't think about Feyre at all. It's just, what are we getting out of this deal? And Dad is honestly suspicious of the wolf pelt. He's like, this definitely looks too large to be a real wolf, Feyre. What the heck? But, you know, that's the beginning of this. And, you know, so basically the whole family's useless. And why is she doing this? It's because her mother died. And her mom made her promise to keep the family together and look after them, which Feyre feels compelled to keep doing despite the fact that her mother was also terrible.
Yeah, also, like, maybe this is just because I'm eldest daughter. What a weird thing to make your youngest promise.
It's a very good question.
Did she just know that Feyre, like, her life was gonna suck?
I guess.
And like Nesta and Elaine are just so much more beautiful. So like, Feyre, sorry you're ugly, but like she's not ugly. Like, why? I just don't understand why she was the one.
If any, maybe some of Nesta's like anger towards Feyre and just anger in general is the fact that her mom didn't trust Nesta to do this and made Feyre do it instead. What do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah.
This is a trope that really doesn't work for me. The like, a dying person made me promise to do this thing. Maybe it's some sociopathy on my part, but I'm just like, yeah, sure, tell them whatever when they're still alive, but when they're dead, what the fuck does it matter?
Yeah. I will say there was like a weird thread through this book where everyone was like, my promise, my word is law. Like, I can't break it. Like, she seems to think of her like shit. Promise. Oh, I know. But she seems to think of it this way. And then also like Tamlin has a little bit of like, I promised I wouldn't let anything happen to you.
Yeah.
Bullshit as well.
Yeah, I feel like Nesta should have been the one to carry this burden, not Feyre. But like, here we are. Yeah. So Nesta desperately wants to marry some dude called Thomas, and Feyre's like, no, his family's one step away from cannibalism. Absolutely not. And so basically, like, the entire family is just in dire straits at this point. There's no hope that a good life is possible at this point. I should also note at one point there's a really nice little piece of foreshadowing in this chapter about a dresser that she's painted. Feyre's painted a dresser because Feyre's a painter, and
quote unquote painter.
Quote unquote painter. And she's drawn the drawers kind of after their sisters. So one drawer is wildflowers for Elaine, the other drawer has flames for Nesta because obviously, and then Feyre's drawer is the night sky.
And she just like doesn't know why.
Yeah,
but
she's
she
like,
just
how?
connects with the night. She connects with the stars. Who knows why?
We don't know. We have no idea. So
I've never vibed with painted wood.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just think it's tacky.
I saw someone
think she's tacky.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, my favorite like headcanon is that she's actually like terrible at art. I don't want it to be true because then it just feels sad, but it's really funny to think about.
Yeah. No, I do like to think that she's actually just finger painting and everyone's like, she's so good at this. But I like my canon better.
Yeah, me too. I mean, to get a little bit off topic here, I'm going to go throughout this whole book because I had to do a paper on all the different versions of Beauty and the Beast when I was studying abroad in French. Also in French. Frenchland, yeah. I had to write it in French. I had to watch like tons of French movies because Beauty and the Beast is from a French fairy tale. And the way their family is set up and the way that like the dad loses his money and everything is just like directly from the 1946 French version of Beauty and the Beast. Like in it, the dad loses his money because he like bets on these ships and then creditors show up and take the rest of his money. And then on the way back from the house, he stumbles into this castle. But before he'd left to kind of go on this walk where he discovers this castle, he's like, daughters, what do you want from me on this trip? And then the two daughters say like, oh, I want like monkeys and parrots and I want like beautiful silks or dresses. And then the one daughter who's
white
Belle.
People were crazy for monkeys in the early modern era.
I know.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. And then the one daughter is like, I would just like a rose, father. Of course, that's Belle. And then on the way back, he takes a rose from the castle, and then, you know, the beast comes and claims the girl. Well, actually claims the dad that he has to go back and, like, be prisoner in this castle for some reason, but then Belle ends up going in his place. And I will continue to talk about Beauty and the Beast and how she just, like, directly pulls from the multiple versions of Beauty and the Beast throughout this whole book. Yeah,
Sarah J. Maas is really good at pulling directly from certain fairy tales and certain versions of fairy tales, amongst all of her books, actually.
Yeah. If you've never seen the 1946 Beauty and the Beast, you should absolutely do it because the beast is like, it's real like lion fur attached to his face. And then also like a lot of special effects and stuff.
Oh, yes. I like the end when they fly off in slow motion.
Yeah, I know. But like, it's a pretty important movie and film. So anyway, sorry.
Good work, Emma. Thank you.
Thanks.
An important thing in this story is that Feyre can't read because of her upbringing.
Maybe that's why the mom made her promise. She's like, you're an idiot. So Learn how to hunt, girl.
So that's the thing. When all this went down, Pharaoh would probably have been about 11 years old. So, like, you should already know how to read by the time you're 11? Or is this, like, some sort of provincial medieval thing where her parents thought that girls don't need to read because they'll just get married and have kids? Like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's really kind of glossed over. But
Well, they say that, like, her mom was teaching her at one point, and then her mom was like, nah, I'm not teaching anymore.
yeah.
Or am I incorrect?
No, I think it was like Farrah's mom dies when Farrah's 8. And
Yeah.
she says something somewhere along the way that she kind of just shirked her education. Like she didn't hire a governess. And they kind of just, I don't know. I think it was kind of one of those things where mom was not a good mom.
Yeah.
And here we are. And dad was too busy being a man of economy or whatever
Yeah.
to
Big
really
businessman.
notice. Yes, right. Like he was too busy like sending ships off to the continent. So anyway, let's move on. So they go to the market and immediately run into this nun-type person called the Children of the Blessed. And these people worship the Fae, and the Fae who used to rule over the humans, which is the whole backstory to this book. Nesta focuses her rage immediately on this person and just goes absolutely like bonkers, like mad at her. Meanwhile, Feyre has moved on to a mercenary who she sells the pelts to. And the mercenary is just like, I will give you all this money and I will overpay. And Feyre's like, but why? And like, I'm like, yeah, why? No understanding of why that happens.
No,
But
she's
like,
just feeling nice that day.
it just feels nice. She's just like, I got you, lady. Like, I totally get where you got this pelt, and I'm going to give you some money because you deserve what's coming to you.
Yeah.
But-
Oh.
no, so mercenary lady tells her some things that are coming through the wall, which the wall is separating Prythian from the human world because of a war that happened 500 years ago where the humans who used to be the slaves of the fairy
Yeah.
rose up and it went to rebellion, and a huge war happened, and the humans who were also like allied with some fairies who were pro-human won the war, and they had to put this barrier in place that keeps the fairies out. But apparently there are holes in this barrier, and these things come through occasionally and grab people and act kind of crazy, and here they are. So apparently there are more holes now and more things are coming through. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Am I getting that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So
Sorry, we're just enthralled. You're doing such a good job.
so basically, a dude named Isaac shows up and kind of motions to Farah, and they go off to a barn and they have a good time in the barn, rolling around, having sex and such. This is the only like good thing that Farah has, is having mediocre sex with some boy.
Yeah.
And she comes back to the house and things are going well. Like they've got some money, they've got some warmth, they've got some venison in their bellies. Everything's turning up like roses this night. And then all of a sudden, a beast breaks down the door.
Ooh. Also, before we get to the beast in the next chapter, I just want to say I'm really glad that this book in this world, it doesn't seem like super slut-shamey about premarital sex, because I feel like it'd be very easy in the time frame I feel like this world was built around to just be like, oh, she's sleeping with Thomas, what a hoe. I mean, her dad does make like one line in the book that I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big difference I have seen between modern romances and romances written, say, in the second half of the 20th century when I first was exposed to romances, is that back then the women were always feisty yet virginal,
Yeah.
and the happy ending was them being subjugated to men.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, I
Maybe
think
it's
that
also
was,
like,
But
when
now the women have their own stuff going on.
yeah. So
I like
much.
read all of Bridgerton like in my pivotal teen years, so maybe that's why I feel like every book has some sort of like slut shaminess to it. But it was just that time.
No, I think it was that time. The 90s were like optimal time for like bodice ripper, slut shamey. Partially, I'm gonna rape you because I can't help myself. I'm so
Yeah,
in love with
gross.
you, and then we get married later because like I did it because I was in love, which we don't see
love
now very much ever.
God.
But like, well, now we just call it non-con and we move on. But like,
Still yuck.
yeah. So okay, let's talk about the beast here, because the beast is like half wolf, half like feline, half.
He also has horns.
He has horns too,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But we need to focus on the eyes, because the green eyes. He has green eyes, and they have amber flecks, which, as we all know, there's LI, love interest code. If you have any sort of flex going on, this is definitely going to be indicative of the fact that this man is going to have sex with her eventually.
Yeah, it's always about the flex.
Yes, always at the flex.
I think he looks like Krampus. I think all his descriptions, and it could be just that Tabitha was showing us so many Krampus photos, but he was described straight up like Krampus, and I highlighted it, and my Kindle is like being a brat right now.
So no, I love this. Like, so basically, Tamlin is Krampus.
yeah, in his beast form, I was like, this is straight up Krampus.
Okay, well, you know what?
Oh, here we
I
go.
like that. I like that canon for you.
Okay, the beast had to be as large as a horse, and while his body was somewhat feline, his head was distinctly wolfish. I didn't know what to make of the curled elk-like horns that protruded from his head. But lion or hound or elk, there was no doubting the damage his black dagger-like claws and yellow fangs could inflict. Tell me that's not Krampus.
It is pretty Krampus.
Thank
yeah.
you. Okay.
I mean, the elk-like horns is not exactly what I would think. I mean, but
No, but
I can
usually
move along
Krampus
with
has
that.
horns,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
Tabitha?
Sure.
Krampus has horns.
Thank you. So Tamlin, Krampus, same person. They're both crabby too.
Okay. Oh my God. All right. So Krampus, or Tamlin as the Beast, bursts in and basically calls them murderers. Then this is like when they're like, oh, oops, yeah, that wolf was accidentally totally a fae. And Farah is, I mean, she kind of like does this thing where she like bursts in and is just like, no, it was me. I totally killed it. I did it for funsies because your kind are terrible, which is not the truth, like at all. But for whatever reason, like this gets retconned and like, I totally killed this wolf because I knew it was a fairy. And I'm like, but that's not really what happened. But okay, whatever. So she does it to save her family because she's in like really this like I am gonna save everybody mode, and because I told my mom I would. And the dude as a beast in this beast form says, it's a life for a life in this treaty between the fae and the humans that stopped the war 500 years ago. And the beast gives her an option at this point to be killed right here and now or to live out her life in Prythian. So she obviously chooses Prythian. Her dad tells her, do not come back here because you know what, our home sucks and clearly the unknown is better than here, so leave. She wanders off in the woods with this beast. We have a nice little journeying chapter here where Feyre asks him what kind of fairy he is, and he's a complete dick to her and says, what does it matter, human? She worries about her family. She's not going to survive because all of them suck. They don't know how to survive.
Yeah.
And she kind of vaguely worries that Nesta's going to prostitute herself for money, which I kind of think is funny. Because like, why not? Go prostitute yourself. That's what you're meant for, Nesta.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure she'll be in huge demand. Maybe it's like a dominatrix.
Oh, I think she'd really be good at that. So at this point, because he's really tired of hearing her like ask him questions, he magically makes her fall asleep for 2 days. And she wakes up and she's just at his house, just like magic.
Which, Jesus Christ, would be so handy. Just cast sleep to get out of any situation.
That'd be lovely.
It would be lovely, right? Like for literally every dentist appointment.
Yeah.
I mean, they already kind of do that, so that's great.
They knock you out for all your dental appointments?
They can. That's an option. So, all right.
Just take that anti-anxiety and power through.
Yeah. Okay. So important to note is that it's suddenly spring. It was winter before. It's like the weather opposite in the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
So her knife is gone. So she now knows that he's patted her down, which is like creeping her out because it's a beast, right? She doesn't know at this point that he's the most beautiful fairy that she'll ever know, which is also a lie, but whatever. She thinks about running at this moment, but her horse literally won't obey her commands. The horse is just like, nope, not doing that. She's like, I'm too tired and hungry to run on foot, so I will eat first and then run later. So she walks into the house with this beast who's still literally a beast. He's just wandering around this like mansion now, which is so opulent. It's got black and white checkered marble floors.
Tacky.
Yeah. Grand gardens, and there are no dungeons to be seen. She's very
he's a
careful to
good
note
guy.
that. Yeah, he's a good guy deep down. He doesn't have dungeons here. This is his home. We don't dungeon people in my home. For whatever reason, she's confused about why he's rich. She's just like, for some reason, she didn't think that they'd be rich. And he is. He's rich beyond her possible comprehension. She's happy to note, however, that the food is similar. They have chicken and asparagus right there on the table.
That was just like such a weird thing for you to know, but I love it.
I know. I mean, like, I just was very compelled to know exactly what fairy food is. And apparently it's chicken and asparagus, which I did not anticipate happening.
Do you think their biology is such that asparagus also makes their pea smell?
Okay, I just had that same thought as you.
I mean, I hope so. But okay, so we're running up against one of our early contradictions here because she's already said that like she's too tired and hungry to run unfit, so she's going to eat first and then go. But then she sees the food and she's like, oh, great food. And then she's like, I can't eat it though, because the second I eat this food, I'm stuck here, which is like a weird Persephone rule, which is like, okay, well, why did you think it before that you could do this? But you know what? This is just me being picky.
No, it's
like, it's a pretty known fairy world thing. Like, don't eat here, you'll be stuck. But I don't know what she thinks she's gonna do. She's already stuck. Like, this isn't.
Yeah, you're stuck here. You're stuck here, lady. There's no running. At this point, when she's looking at this like packed dining table full of all this food that she can't eat. The beast becomes a golden-haired man. He is high fae. He is ruling nobility. He's young, and he's wearing a mask. I'm not sure what the mask is supposed to be, just like a beast mask.
I thought it was like masked ball mask.
Yeah, it's like a masked ball mask. It's like a beautiful
or
golden. It's a golden mask that's over like the front of his over his eyes, basically, so she can see his mouth.
Weird style choice.
Yes, and he's also wearing warrior attire, and so he's like got a mask on, wearing warrior attire. Like, this is super weird, and she's a little confused at this point.
She's judging his style.
Yeah, she's like, what's going on here?
Putting
with
you
this
on
outfit?
what not to wear.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, warrior wearing a mask. This is super off. Then Lucian shows up, who is another high fae. He's also wearing a mask that is similar to Tamlin's, but it's a fox type of situation.
And he's got a gold eye.
He has a golden eye, which
it's like mechanic or something.
It's mechanical, yes. And also he has flowing red hair, which we will talk about ad nauseum. Not as good as Tamlin's though, because it's golden.
But
yeah.
Not with the blondes.
Yeah. So they talk about the wolf dying, and Lucian's like, what? Like, sincerely, the wolf died. The wolf actually died. So something's going on between the two of them. They're having this conversation about the wolf. And Tamlin's like, hey, treaty magic, right? Yeah, the treaty magic. And Lucian's like, oh, yeah, okay, treaty magic. And he's like, look, I brought the human here. And Feyre is kind of confused about all this. And Lucian calls her scrawny, like, right to her face. And Feyre is super offended and confused by the masks. I do want to take a little note on the theme here, because the high fae are treating the humans terribly at this point. Like, both of them are just like, ugh, humans, why did I have to bring a human into my home? It's really strange here for Feyre, I think, at this point, because given the history that we have, the fae are the ones who slaughtered the humans. They enslaved the humans, and here they are, like, kind of saying that, like, oh, the humans are the hateful ones, like, you hate us for reasons unknown. I'm like, I think they're pretty known, like like you were the oppressors for a very long time. So what? Like, so I really get confused a little bit about this book's theme, like, because at a certain point here, we all know what happens in this book is that, you know, we're going to forgive our oppressors, or we're doomed to these ignorance and poverty that are humans. Because over the course of this book, it's just like, humans are just dumb, right? They're dumb and they're weak, and we can't trust them to do anything because they're so mortal and sad.
The high fae are basically saying, we enslaved you, but it was a long time ago. Why are you still being such a bitch about it?
Get over it.
Yeah. So it's just a really weird dynamic. So Lucian basically says that this girl's going to kill them all if, like, we give them a chance. And Tamlin says, like, this girl's going to stay, end of discussion. And then Feyre goes and gets a makeover. So that's fun for her. She gets back to dinner. Feyre is reluctant to eat, obviously. And then Lucian's just, like, you suck at talking to ladies, Tamlin. And he says Tamlin. And so we know his name now. And he's kind of, like, pushing him to say something. And at this point, I kind of do think he's basically, like, the Cogsworth of the story.
I'm going to have to disagree.
That's fine.
I think he's Lumiere because he's, like, trying to, you know, wingman Tamlin, and Cogsworth, like, wasn't into that, but Lumiere was like, listen, that was a terrible French accent for someone who studied in France. But Lumiere's, like, very suave and is, like, you know, gets to be friends with Belle, like, faster than Cogsworth is, so I think he's Lumiere. Also, she gets her makeover, which is basically, like, nerdy girl gets her glasses taken off.
Yeah. They do. Like, they're like, we're going to put you in a dress now. And she's like, no.
Oh, women, take your glasses off. You're gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like, I can't run in this dress. So, yeah. So basically, like, do you have interest? And she's like, no. Lucian keeps going back to this wolf and how disgusted he is with her for killing the wolf. And I find this a very strange conversation, since I can't really figure out what Lucian's trying to accomplish in this scene, because it's like, how dare you kill my friend? But when it comes right down to it, we know why she killed the friend, and we know what the point of all of that was. But he's still mad at her about it, which,
I mean, she did, like, murder and then skin his friend.
This is true,
like,
but when you really think about who put that friend out there for that specific
I mean,
purpose,
but we don't know that right now.
We don't.
We just know there was a wolf fae out there.
No, but Lucian does, is the thing. He knows
well, that's
exactly.
why he's pissed.
I know, it's a whole thing. It's
yeah,
like so
okay,
weird.
okay.
Yeah, like, he knows exactly why it happened, but he's just like, I hate you, Feyre, because you killed my friend. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know, dude, your best friend killed your friend
him by proxy. Yeah.
Oh God, this is the long chapter. This is such a freaking long chapter.
I know.
Cool.
Oh.
He also explains the masks. So
Yeah.
he does explain that the masks are due to a magical blight that happened 49 years ago. Exactly. 49 years, which, you know, is not a weird number. And he says that the wolf dude was over the wall to look for a cure. And this is, I guess, to make her feel extra bad about killing the wolf. So time starts to get glossed over at this point. Like, she wants to run, but she doesn't run. She steals a knife that everyone's like, yeah, we totally noticed you stealing that knife. Tamlin is kind of weird to her about it. He's never really like warming up. He's just like, God, I've got this girl. I guess I should talk to her or something.
Got, like, social constipation.
He does. Like, he's like, so how did your mom die, I guess? And she's like, she died of typhus. And so...
Which is wild. I had to double check that it really was typhus, because that is a flea and lice disease. There's so many more romantic diseases that she could have died from. I mean, consumption is right there.
Yeah.
Also, typhus is more of a tropical disease. You don't find it in temperate places. And I mean, this is basically Sussex. So I personally got hung up on the fact it was typhus. I'm sure she just threw out a random disease, but that's weird that her mom died of typhus.
It was indeed typhus.
Just so everybody knows, that's weird.
Yes. Yeah, I do think it's strange. But like, so she has stolen this knife because I think it makes her feel at least a little bit like she's doing something.
Yeah.
And she puts it in her bug out bag because she's kind of creating a bug out bag. She's trying. She's like, I'm totally going to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's cute, Farrah. It's cute that you think that. Lucian is kind of winds up being her like key to trying to get out. So she's like, I'm going to find Lucian alone. I'm going to convince him to convince Tamlin to let me go. This seems super stupid to me, but like this whole first part is Tamlin telling her that everything is fine with her family and she has to stay here for reasons that have to do with the treaty. Otherwise, if she leaves, everything is going to go to hell. Everyone's going to die. She has to stay here. And she's still like, I'm going to find a way home because I'm totally going to go home to my family that's stupid and terrible and take care of my family because my mom said that I have to do this.
Because I promised my dead mom.
Yes. Yeah, I must go back to my shanty full of assholes.
Yes. So at this point, she kind of mentions this, like, is there no way I can do this? And I think at this point, Lucian is kind of telling her, like, yeah, there is this one way that you can at least find out some information that's not coming from me or Tamlin. It's this thing called the Suriel. We'll get into the Suriel in a second. But at this point, there's a threat, this great threat, which winds up being called the Bog, which is spelled B-O-G-G-E, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced bog, even though it's not bogey. That doesn't make sense.
I just want it to be bogey because it's booger.
Yes. Well, also a bogey is like an actual fictional folklore creature in the British Isles. So
that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they go to dinner after this conversation about the cereal, and this bog thing kind of like is creepy off the side, and they walk in together, and Tamlin's like, how dare you walk into this room together? And it's just he's just super booty about it, and it's just like Lucian is just like, dude, we're not together, let's not do this. And he's just like, actually there was kind of a threat out there called, the Bog is roaming around in the woods, and Tamlin gets all constipated about that and rushes off to go on a hunt.
Well, he's the only one who can kill it.
He's the only one who can kill it.
Lucian's not strong enough.
He is.
So only Tam.
It's kind of Lucian's his story in life, right? I'm not strong enough.
That's so sad. Poor Lucian.
So yeah, Feyre stays up late watching for him, and so at this point, she's just staring off into the distance, and she sees her dad stumble onto the grounds, which is a big like, what?
How did he get here? He's got a bum leg.
How did he get here? We don't know. Feyre stupidly believes that this is her dad, so she runs out to meet him, and then Tamlin catches her, calls her a fool yet again, human fool, and keeps her from getting eaten by what is called a puka. So dad is actually a puka. Feyre is a complete idiot here, but she finally accepts that Tamlin is taking care of her family. They are now like living in opulence. He's given her a cover story, and she's no longer beholden to her promise, which leaves her completely aimless. So at this point, she has a really creepy dream about her skinning the wolf. But now the wolf is a man, and she feels extreme guilt over it.
I mean, I thought the dream was gross, but like, I also think it was because S.J. Maas was trying to remind us that this wolf is a person, and like she killed a person. She didn't just kill a wolf. So like we talked earlier, like Lucian was so angry about it, but like he had a right to be. Like it was literally his friend that was killed, not just like a random bird. Like I think it would be equal to like if someone killed your dog and then like end up skinning it, like gross thought, but
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like, Lucian has his problems. But yeah, I do think that at this point, it's really a turning moment for Feyre. Because right now, though, I mean, now she's lost all, like, kind of understanding of what she's going to do. So she decides that she's going to map the house. At this point, because she's mapping the house and she's wandering around mapping the house, she runs into an injured Tamlin who has just killed the bog, and she tends to him in the infirmary, and they have a wonderful little touching moment where he's like, "You can't write, yet you can hunt. How?" And I'm like, my dude, those are not connected skills.
No, not at all. One is like, it's not saying that reading's bad, because, you know, our podcast is on reading.
Yes.
But like,
also, his wounds are completely unnecessary to heal. It's like, actually, for her to treat her and her stupid human skills, how could she possibly?
But this is a Beauty and the Beast fan fiction, so this is where, you know, we're in the fireplace with Belle, and she's healing Beast, and he's like, "Oh my god, you care for me."
Yeah, this is hurt comfort, man. Give it the times.
It is.
This is literally the only romantic trope in this book where I was like, "Oh hell yeah, give me more." How bloody is he? Are you using gauze? I'll bet you are. You're gonna have to give him stitches.
Does he have to bite a piece of wood so he doesn't yell?
God,
bite
I
off
hope
his
so.
tongue?
So at this point, she overhears Tamlin and Lucian arguing, and like hears that they don't have much time left. Tamlin's like, "I will not be my father," and not after what they did to the humans in their land. So at this point, she questions Tamlin, like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And he clearly lies to her and says the Fae are immortal and only have time. We have tons of time. I don't know what you're talking about. She accepts this completely, because I think at this point she thinks that the Fae can't lie, which is an amusing assumption to me. But she has a lot of these assumptions about the fairy.
Yeah, she says that like 5 times in the book. Like, "Oh, they can't lie to me."
They can't lie. No.
But they do.
Yes. So Feyre wants to see the study so she can uselessly mope around, I guess, with the books and try to write a letter warning her family about the blight, because she thinks that it could get over the wall. This, of course, goes nowhere, because I will remind us all, she cannot read.
Also, it's been almost 50 years. Think if it would have, it would have.
Yeah, at this point, it would have gotten there, especially since there are holes in this wall, right? It's not you can get through it. She argues with Tamlin and then decides that she's going to go catch the cereal, because she needs to find a way out of this treaty and warn her family and get home. So at this point, she's just trying to find things to do. And for whatever reason, Lucian tells her how to do this. I'm not sure why he does that, but he does. He tells her. So she goes out there with some chicken and like a lure, I guess, and she catches the cereal. And this is super easy for her, where everybody else is just like, "I tried this multiple times and I couldn't do it. How did you, a human, manage to do this?" She's like, "It was super easy. I just had some chicken." So the cereal tells her about Hybern and the king of Hybern, and that he's plotting to take over, and that one of his plotters deceived him and went rogue about 50 years ago. So remember, the blight happened 59 years ago. She doesn't really put this together, but
Well, she can't read. There's no way she can do math.
True. Yeah. So also, the serial tells her that there is no hope of going home, and maybe just accept this. And also, stay with the High Lord. And this will become important later. But she thinks that the High Lord at this point is Tamlin.
Can you describe what the cereal looks like?
Absolutely, I can. So basically, it's spindly. It has scabby gray arms, yellow cracked fingernails, and it's bald. And the quote is, "A face that looked like it had been crafted from dried, weathered bone. Its skin either forgotten or discarded. A lipless mouth and 2 long teeth held by blackened gums, slitted holes for nostrils, and eyes that were nothing more than swirling pits of milky white." The rest of his body is like basically composed of veins and bones, and it's dried and solid and horrific as the texture of its face.
Hot.
Yeah, super
I
hot.
love a lipless mouth.
After the description of the cereal, her bowels do turn watery. And we have discussed the watery bowels thing. It does happen 3 times in this book.
Yeah, it seems to be that the author thinks it is the equivalent of saying, like, the bottom of my stomach dropped out. But saying my bowels turn watery sounds like diarrhea, right? Like, everyone can agree that this girl is just, like, pooping herself on the reg.
100% she was pooping herself on the reg.
She's walking around with adult
barfing and
diapers.
pooping. No wonder so many fae are, like, into her.
Yeah, plus on top of that, at one point she does say, "I couldn't help it." So it's just like,
Wait, what?
yeah. She's like, "I couldn't help it. My bowels turned watery." And I thought to myself when I read that, like, what is going on in your pants right now, Farah? I really need to know for my own peace of mind. Like, what's happening
also,
down
like,
there?
what's the underwear situation? I had this thought later when they are like swimming in their underwear, but like, is she wearing like modern underwear or are we wearing like drawers?
So from what I understand,
you mean drawers?
Yeah,
drawers. Drawers is the way that they say it in the South. Okay.
Yeah, come on.
She wearing her drawers.
Listen, I'm ill. My mouth body doesn't work correctly right now.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna look at like our history, specifically European history, upon which this is based, for the majority of history, women just straight up did not wear underpants.
Oh, so she's just like
free balling it.
Yeah.
Yes, but this is the modern SJM universe, and she is definitely wearing lacy underthings. At least in the sequels, she is.
So she's just straining the diarrhea.
Yeah. Yes.
Disgusting.
Okay, so after the serial has told her this very important information that she needed to know, the Naga show up. And these are kind of like snake-like creatures.
What did you think they look like? Because I thought human body snakehead, because I think that's scarier. But in all the art I've looked up, it's like human torso and head and then a snake tail, like some kind of land mermaid.
Oh, I didn't Google it at all, but I thought it looked like Voldemort.
I went with snakehead. I was thinking to myself, this is a person with snake skin and has a snake head type face, but not totally snakehead, kind of like maybe a hybrid of the two.
See, I thought totally snakehead, like enough to make it like wiggly. That seems scary to me.
Yeah, that does seem scary.
This isn't relevant.
So, she saves the serial from this Naga, which is going to save her ass in the future books because the serial's like, she saved me. I have to actually, I don't know, kind of like her, I guess. Tamlin shows up, saves her because she is kind of a damsel in distress in this first book. At least in the first part, things just kind of happened to her. And she decides to take the serial's advice at this point and stop looking for more answers. Stay with the High Lord. Around this time, she finds out that fairies can indeed lie. Just wrecking her whole worldview. But when she finds out that some of the Fae fought on the side of humans, Tamlin definitely would have fought for the humans, he says, because he hates slavery and tyranny, which is very big of him. But also he finally explains what he did to her family. Like, they have no idea where she is. He's glamored them. He believes she's living with the wealthy aunt, which I feel like he probably told her before, but is telling her again. I don't know. This first part of the book is very repetitive.
Yeah.
Also, they know about the blight. Don't worry about it. You can stop. Just stop. So yay, now she truly has nothing to do with her time and decides it is finally time to paint. And at this point, she's like, she finally feels the first inklings of romance for Tamlin because he's like, I will give you the paint. Then she has nothing to do, but no worries, because this is when the external plot shows up. So, yeah, Tamlin rushes in at some point in the night of the wounded fairy in his arms, and the wounded fairy keeps saying, she took my wings, and then he dies. At this point, Farah is like getting all mushy, and she's holding the fairy's hand. She tells Tamlin that she regrets what she did to the wolf fairy, which I have totally forgotten his name. I apologize.
I have no idea.
Doesn't matter. And that she had such hate in her heart before, but now she 100% is pro fairy.
Quick switch.
Yeah, so now welcome to the romance. They go on a picnic, they swim in a pool of literal starlight, I might ask, and they talk for hours,
which is the point when everyone thought that they were going to finally do it.
Yeah,
but no,
I know.
They don't.
Yeah, I thought this was when it was going to happen.
They take off their clothes, the chemise comes off, underwear shucked. They go in the pool of starlight, which I guess is kind of like walking around in syrup, which sounds...
Yeah, they said it's like thick like oil.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
gross me out.
Yeah, I imagined it like molasses, which is not sexy.
Yeah, no, it doesn't
it
feel
wasn't
sexy.
like a lot of people died because of molasses.
So he finally tells her that the mating bond is a thing, which she shockingly has no questions about. I would have many questions, but none on her side. He also tells her about Lucian's background, because the thing in these books is that other people tell Farah about the trauma that other people have in this book. So Lucian's background is sad, but we're not going to get into it because I sincerely don't care about Lucian. Tabitha, do you have more to say about underwear?
Underpants?
Yeah,
in
go
history?
for it. Yeah, I will open the
about
floor.
their underpants.
All right. Well, first of all, every single time somebody in a piece of fiction says chemise, I really want them to describe what they think they're talking about.
I think of like the huge overshirt when I think of chemise.
Well, so for a big chunk of time in European history, like I said, women just straight up didn't wear underwear. Yeah. So like in Feyre's case, she'd just be dropping her bowels everywhere, shall we say.
Dropping her bowels.
But for men, they would basically have the shirts that they wore closest to their body, the linen ones, would be long enough that they could kind of tuck it between their legs and use that as protection for their sensitive bits against the pants. So I basically just, when Tamlin's walking around in this starlight scene, I imagine him like in a big shirt, like a toddler wearing their mom's top.
Yeah, like a nightie.
Yeah.
Ugh, I'm not into that. I'm just gonna picture they all have modern underwear for some reason.
I think that's what SJM would prefer.
Well, she didn't describe it at all. That's why I like went on this.
Yeah,
what does it look like?
Yeah, no, for her, it's definitely he's wearing boxers and she's
They're probably
wearing
like
a bra
wearing corsets,
and,
like impractical.
Yeah, oh for sure.
So you know, she's so skinny. It's probably not even real bra. It probably is just like a chemise, like a strip of silk or something,
like a bralette.
Yeah, a bralette.
Like the ones you would get at Pink that's like just lace. That's nothing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
Yep. So at this point, Feyre has her bell in the library moment with this gallery that Tamlin has. And then she starts to paint, or attempts to paint. And she does tell herself that I'm a terrible painter. So in the back of my mind, I'm like finger painting. She's totally finger painting.
Just stick figures.
Yeah, stick figures. And so she finally gets depressed. Like she has nothing to do. So she's kind of like thinking about the fact that my life sucked. My family sucks.
Yeah.
Like everyone truly sucks. And like at this point, Tamlin tries to cheer her up with some filthy poetry he wrote himself, which I was like, that's a bold move, Tamlin. I don't know if you're good at this. Maybe you should stop.
Oh wait, didn't I complain about this when I was reading it? Because she basically tells us that he wrote dirty poetry, but she doesn't actually share what the dirty poetry was.
They
and I
have
was like, you
one
cannot
line.
do that.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like one line and that's it. So basically he finally tells her what the mating bond is and tells her about his family and the trauma associated with the family. But they're setting it for Callan Mai, which she is expressly not invited to. We have to really underline those words. Not invited.
She's not allowed to come.
No. So she overhears Tamlin and Lucian in an argument with some invisible messenger. And she seems to connect this to the problems of late with the masks and the blight. And she's like, yet one more thing I'm not allowed to know. So Night of Callan Mai gets here. And this is a big deal. Let's think about this. Tamlin tells her, stay in your room. Stay in your room.
She's grounded. Yeah,
you're grounded to your room. Stay in here until morning. And then he leaves for what is called the Great Rite. And she goes out anyway. She hears some drums and she's like, I gotta go. So she immediately gets into trouble with a couple of people who basically I think are thinking I could rape and murder her.
Yeah.
And then she's saved by the most beautiful man she has ever seen. And I have to put a little pin in this because the most beautiful man she's ever seen is not Tamlin, which is like a big uh-oh moment. And like when I read this book the first time, it was like, so something's gonna happen here.
I already knew who she ends up with because TikTok ruined it for me. I mean, it was fine, but I was excited for this moment.
Yeah, so this is an exciting moment because this man shows up, and let's quote what this man looks like. So quote, everything about the stranger radiated with sensual grace and ease. High fae, no doubt. His short black hair gleamed like a raven's feathers, offsetting his pale skin and blue eyes so deep they were violet. Even in the firelight, they twinkled and with amusement as he beheld me.
They twinkled almost like they have flecks in them.
Almost. So close. So, and then also a couple other things is his voice was a lover's purr that sent shivers through me. I could see how magnificent he was, as if he'd been molded from the night itself.
What the fuck is a lover's purr?
I don't know. I've always wondered what a purr is supposed to sound like. I think it's
I actually have a TikTok I can show you.
Yeah,
perfect. I
share it with her.
I need that. Okay, so mysterious stranger questions her a bit, and she is utterly blown away by how pretty he is, but manages to lie her way out of it until he lets her go. Lucian finds her and spirits her back to the manor and is like, good God, lady, stay in your room because the Great Rite is sex magic. If you're out there and Tamlin smells you, he's going to want to have sex with you, and that would be bad for me. And so
he's basically like in heat, like magical heat, right? Because
yes.
it's like the spring equinox.
Yes, it's this. Yes,
yeah,
or the solstice, I think, or something.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because like
Does
again,
spring have an equinox?
I mean, must I remind you what they call it when it's alpha males?
What? Oh, yeah. Sorry. He's in a rut.
He is in a rut.
I should know this. I can't believe I misquoted the Omegaverse.
Oh my god. So yeah. So basically, it's just like he's got to do this sex magic so that they're gonna have a good harvest, and so He's like, hey, stay in here till morning. And so she does. She stays in there, except she leaves a gun.
Well, it's 2 a.m. It's close enough to
know,
morning.
I know.
Feyre is so fucking dumb. I can't take it.
She literally says to herself, oh, it's 2 a.m. They must be done with this. And then she leaves her fucking room.
She's told, please don't go outside tonight. And she does it twice. Like, she goes out once, is like essentially threatened with sexual assault. And then around 2 a.m., she's like, I'm going to go for a walk in the dark with a bunch of strangers around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she gets hungry, basically. And she's like, I'm going to go get a snack. And so she goes to the kitchen.
I need a glass of warm milk to go back to bed.
Yeah, and it's not like they have a million fucking servants in this castle.
And also, I think the drums have stopped at this point, so she kind of thinks to herself, the magic rite is over. I'm going to go get some cheese and some crackers, and I'm going to have myself a nice little snack. So she's coming back from the kitchen, and Tamlin shows up, and he's like kind of all magically crazed, and he's like bare-chested, and he's all glistening, and he's like, how dare you be here in the hallway where I could have access to you? Yeah, I was looking for you because I smelled you, and you weren't here, and I was really like kind of sad about it. And so then he bites her, like he like kind of pushes her, up against the wall, and like bites her, and like against like her neck, and it's a big enough bite that it shows a bruise in the morning. And then he tells her never to disobey him, which is somehow sexy, but also makes me want to stab him.
Yeah.
So I mean, I did
sexy, like his line. I would have been gentle with you, though. I hate it. He was so boring. I know. Tabitha's making the most grossed out face to me. He was so boring. And then he said that line, and I was like, all right, Tammy. All right, I see you. Yeah. And then he bit her neck, and I was like, all right, I'm off it now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't deal with the biting.
It was weird.
And then the fact that he tells her to always obey him, and I'm just like, I sincerely don't get this man, but okay, let's move on. So bunch of patriarchal nonsense happens in the next chapter because like he's told her to stay in the room, and Feyre is somehow happy. He gives her some roses. It's just like, I'm sorry I was an asshole. And she's like, oh, I'm so glad he's happy now. Like everything is good and this is cool. So she puts on a dress and she becomes very spring court. Like she gives up the pants and she becomes dress at this point. Which
trad wife favorite.
I know. So yeah, and this is kind of like the yellow dress moment maybe for Belle. What do you think?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
She's finally like stepped into princess.
Yeah, she's princess role. Like, I am gonna be spring court now. Like, I've been bitten by the main male, and now I am spring court.
And he obviously wants me.
He does.
Yeah.
So she takes him to her painting room, and they have this meaningful moment over her paintings. And he tells her that he just wants her to be safe, which I think is some foreshadowing for the next book. But we'll get there when we get there.
For Feyre, who literally has never had anybody care about her, she's like, "Oh, this is nice. Someone wants to actually know what I'm doing and control it. How sweet."
Mm-hmm. I think that's what she's wanted forever, is just someone to control her life because she's been doing all the controlling.
I say it again. Trad wife Feyre.
Yeah, like she's just like in this like I'm surviving, I'm in survival mode, and then this dude shows up and fixes everything. I am totally gonna let him do this. So they picnic. He lifts his glamour for her, and now he's more beautiful, which is kind of hard to believe, but he does it. Now he's just like glowing all the time. But now that since he's lifted the glamour on the entire manor, and so now she's seeing all these people, these court members that have existed there the entire time. She just never knew it. So now she's mortified, knowing that she's been doing all this stuff, and people have just been watching her like she's been like a crazy person.
Just wandering around the grounds with her watery bells as people watch.
Yeah, so her little helper Alice winds up having like bark skin, and she's just like, oh my god, you're like not a like high fae. She's like, god no, like why do you think that? So then they find a head in the garden that was supposedly put there by the Night Court as a prank, which I can't remember why this had happened, but
this is very like frat boy coded.
Yeah, it's very frat boy coded. And so like I guess apparently the Night Court put a head in their garden, and so they have to get it down, and that's a whole big thing. But welcome to summer solstice, y'all. She gets drunk on fairy wine, and there's a very ridiculous fiddle solo scene.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that Tamlin plays. I forgot about
that
fiddle.
too. Yes. That was a huge ick for me.
Yeah, so he plays the fiddle, and she's like dancing to it, like really feeling the solo scene for the fiddle, and then they kiss finally. Don't worry, we've already been told that Feyre looks like a woman now and not a half-starved toddler. Like she goes into this scene thinking, I am filled out, I am a woman, everything is cool, and Tabitha looks like she has a headache.
You good, girl?
I'm good.
So
She's got soft curves, but don't worry, she's still not fat.
Yeah, no, God, no.
Can't have that.
No.
So our dark and mysterious stranger shows up and interrupts their happy lunch and throws his weight around. They call him Amarantha's whore, and they talk about things that Feyre doesn't understand. Good news, his violet eyes are like stars, which is getting closer to Flex. Not quite. Feyre winds up telling him that her name is Claire Better, which is obviously not. But at this point, he does make Tamlin and Lucien bow to him, which I thought was fun.
Yeah.
Also, it's important for later that Claire Better is like a rando from back in the Mortal Lands that she knew.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Claire Better is immortal. And so Feyre decides she's never going to try to paint this violently beautiful man because he's too beautiful to attempt a likeness. Maybe because his violet eyes burn like stars, which is very close to Flex. So Tamlin tells her that she has to leave right now. Like after this man has made him bow, he's like, "There's no way you can stay here. I can't protect you." At this point, they have sex. I would say it's not a terrible sex scene.
Hot take. I hated it. It was so boring. It was so boring. It was just like, it was bad. It was just really vanilla is really what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree with Emma. Around the same time that I read this book, I read Check-in Mate by Ellie Hazelwood.
Yeah.
And Check-in Mate is solidly YA, and the build-up to the sex that happens entirely off-page was still sexier than this entire scene where they actually do it on page.
It was like two virgins having sex for the first time is how I pictured it.
Like you said, it was just super vanilla. Yeah. Like, he was like biting her and shit before, which I'm not into, but...
like, fine. A little fun.
Yeah.
And then this was like, we're just gonna do missionary, and then
yeah, lights off, no talking.
Yeah, I do think like this book is probably hampered by the fact that it was published in 2015, and it was confused about where it wanted to be in the market. YA, adult, it can't be both. So it tried to have that little bit of sex in it.
Also, we can't forget Tamlin said that he loved her after he fucked her.
Yes.
So
yes, he definitely said, "I love you" after he fucked her. And she, at this point, still doesn't know who Amarantha is. She doesn't know the stakes. So she doesn't say, "I love you" back, which is a huge issue. So she gets in the carriage that Tamlin gets for her and sends her back home. She goes back home and basically says, I'll deal with the treaty. Don't worry about it. And she goes home and she gets magically put to sleep again because she can't, I guess, stay awake on the way. And she just wakes up in front of her family's new mansion, and Nesta is still a bitch for no damn reason. So this chapter is where you can't go home again, right? Like, Nesta's super standoffish. Her dad's off there counting all the money that Feyre brought home. And Elena's like, "I really liked our cottage in the woods. Remember it?" Feyre's just like looking at her cottage. Like, they go on like a little walk, and she realizes that, oh my God, Elaine had hope. And I didn't. And therefore, Elaine is stronger than me. Which, I'm sorry, but that is complete bullshit.
Right? Like, Feyre, you literally hunted, killed, and butchered wild animals to keep your family alive.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. So the breakthrough with Nesta, she eventually has a breakthrough with Nesta because Nesta always knew that Tamlin was a thing, was always there. She couldn't be glamored because she has this iron will, right? She can't, like, be glamored. And she tried to find her. She tried to, like, go into the fairyland to get Feyre back, but she just couldn't do it because she's just a sad, poor, weak human. And so at this point, though, Feyre finds out that Claire Better's family is dead and Claire herself is missing. So her time with her family gets cut short very quickly because she's like, okay, something is not right. And she decides that she's going to go back to the Spring Court, but it's empty when she gets there. It's 100% emptied out. And this is kind of a doozy of a chapter because she runs into Alice, of all people, our Barkskin lady. And Alice is like, "You bitch. How could you have not seen the curse that we were all very magically bound to not tell you about?" Yeah. And Alice proceeds to tell her about the curse that they've been under and that this Amarantha person put Tamlin under this extremely specific curse that Feyre herself was almost going to break, except she just didn't say "I love you." Had she just said "I love you," the curse would have been broken. Everything would have been great.
If only. Magic
would have been returned to the land. Tamlin's mask would have fallen off. Everything would have been perfect. But she didn't do it. So now she has only one choice, which is to walk completely underprepared into a cave under the mountain where Amarantha holds court. And this is where she immediately runs into the Adder, which is this, like, I don't know.
Is that how it's said?
I think so. In the audiobook, yes.
Oh. I pronounce it as ACOTAR.
Yeah, I absolutely thought that it was spelled like adder, like the snake. So I was imagining it as something kind of snaky, and it appears to actually be spelled ATTOR, which really threw me off.
Yeah, it is. It can throw you off, and I think,
just assume it's some kind of spooky lesser fae.
yeah, it's a spooky lesser fae that has wings and teeth, and generally speaking, looks like it is on the side of evil.
Maybe bat coated.
Yeah, definitely bat coated. It can fly,
But
and
like
it looks
an
a little
ugly
batty.
bat, not like
yeah.
the hot bats.
Oh no, not a hot bat.
Yeah, no, there's going to be hot bats later.
This is an ugly bat.
Yeah.
She's brought immediately to the throne room of Antherantha when she gets caught by the adder. There she sees Claire's broken dead body, and she knows down deep that Tamlin let this happen. But she wants him anyway. Because she's completely brainwashed by love, and she's like, Tamlin is my guy. He is my High Lord. I am 100% with Tamlin. If only he would like look at me, which he won't even really look at her. He's just like, I can't look at you. I've been completely like whipped by Amarantha. So he's up there sitting with Amarantha because Amarantha's like, I really want Tamlin to have sex with me. That's like really the point of the whole of this. I want Amarantha and Tamlin to get together and just be by themselves, but they can't do that because Tamlin's like, no, bitch, I don't want you.
And that's why the curse was like put on them, right?
Yes.
Because he like scorned her.
Yeah, he scorned her. He was like, I don't want you. And Amarantha's like, how dare you not want this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Amarantha gives her, Feyre, the chance to complete these tasks. So she has to complete 3 tasks or solve this riddle. And then she can just take Tamlin home and everything will be cool. But then she has her beaten up.
Yeah, she can't figure out the riddle, so they're like, all right, 3 tasks, but first this beating.
Yes, so she gets beaten up and thrown into a real dungeon at this point.
Did you get the riddle?
I honestly didn't
I already
think about
knew.
it.
Oh.
I mean, I knew it was going to be love. But looking at the riddle itself, I didn't like put any thought into it.
At first I thought love, and then I was like, that's too obvious.
That's stupid.
and then I talked myself out of it, and I was like, oh my god, I think I'm fucking stupid. I don't know what it is.
Well, you know, I had the same feeling at the end of the first Harry Potter book where it's like, how did you survive? Your mother's love. I was like, that's fucking dumb.
Love solves everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god. So in the dungeon, Lucian finds her and he fixes her broken nose because, you know, beauty above all. And so at this point in the character development of Feyre, she is a little bit more spunky, right? Even though she has kind of fallen into this love hole, she can't think critically about Tamlin anymore. She's still very like, dude, look, I don't need your criticism about how I am weak, and like all of that, this self-hatred for herself kind of boils away. And she kind of snaps at him finally. And like, yeah, I know I'm an idiot. I know I came here alone, but it doesn't matter now. I'm here. So shut the fuck up and let's do this. And I'm like, good for you, Feyre. Finally.
I wish she was like this the whole book.
Yeah, same. So she gets hauled back in front of Amarantha at this point, and because Amarantha's like, I want your name. I want your real name. I don't want your fake name. And so Rhysand, who is off, you know, I can't remember when she remembers his name, probably in the second meeting, she finds out his name, uses his powers on Lucian until Feyre breaks and shouts her name. And Rhysand's powers are basically like getting into your mind and like clawing at it until you become jelly and die.
Yeah,
so,
his powers are shadow and also brain stuff.
Yes, brain stuff is a good way to put that. So then this is when Amarantha delivers her riddle that she can't figure out, and then Feyre just goes back into her box where she sits until the worm chapter arrives. So at this point, Feyre becomes extremely active. Like in the first part of the book, she was really, really passive, and now she's just like this, I don't know, almost like a Katniss character. She's got to like complete these 3 tasks. She's got to do all this stuff.
Well, now it's like we need the actual conclusion of this fantasy book where there has to be action taking place rather than just like drifting around.
Yeah. So she's
So
gotta
like now we have
something.
3 tasks. We got to get this shit done.
Yeah, basically. That's how I feel in this whole like episode. So the worm chapter comes up, and you know she's pitted against this Mittengard worm, which is like, you know, a fairly large sized worm.
I hated that it was a worm. Why couldn't it be a snake?
And it's got a lot of teeth.
Weird.
So it's got a lot of teeth. And so at this point, I'm pretty sure this is kind of where she charms Rhysand, but she manages to destroy the worm. We're not going to get into it because, like, yeah, obviously she kills the worm, but she gets really muddy, and then eventually she gets stabbed by a bone, and she's probably going to die of an infection at this point, but she gets thrown back into her box.
We're talking about the worm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Have you watched SpongeBob?
Yes, I've watched SpongeBob.
Okay, I'm just making sure. This is the second time I've brought up SpongeBob in our episodes. The Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob. That's exactly what I thought of reading this. I was like, this girl's out here fighting this huge earthworm with sandy cheeks at her side. Couldn't it be a snake? Like anything scarier than a worm.
It had to be a worm because it was muddy.
Snakes live in mud, don't they?
Yeah, mud snakes. So for some reason, and this really, really gives away my age immediately, but what I kept thinking of in this scene was in the Coneheads movie, when he has to narfle the Garthok. Now, the Garthok looks nothing like this worm, but for some reason, the arena, that's exactly what I pictured. Emma, is this thing you have seen?
No.
I figured not. Have you seen Coneheads, Maura?
Not actually seen it all the way through, no.
All right, well, it's just me.
Narfle the Garthok.
My parents are going to think that's hilarious.
Well, I'm glad they listened.
I'm super thrilled for them.
Is it this?
Yes.
Oh.
It's the arena that...
Okay, all right. So at this point, remember, she's been stabbed in the arm by a bone.
I thought her bone broke and was like popping out of her skin.
No,
this is stabbed by a bone covered in bacteria.
Yes.
Oh, gross,
So she's been rolling around in mud, remember? Because that was part of how
And
she
worm
got
poop,
away.
probably.
Yes.
Possibly her own poop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely her own poop. She definitely shat her pants.
Oh yes, I for sure. So yeah, she got totally like covered in mud, trying to like clean her scent or whatever so the worm can't find her. And so she's covered in mud, and then she gets stabbed by a bone that was probably also covered in mud. So now she's basically dying of an infection in her little cell, which is when Rhysand appears in her cell and offers her a bargain: save her life in exchange for spending 2 weeks with him every month on the off chance that she survives these trials. She negotiates to a week, which I think is, pretty good for her. And then he's like, yeah, cool. Okay, a week. And she gets a mark on her skin, which is a tattoo, and it's just like a little eye on her palm.
Have you seen the art for this?
Of course I have.
I really hate it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I mean, again, we've talked. I hate all the tattoos.
Yeah.
In all these books. They're
just
bad.
assume if it's a romantasy book and there are tattoos involved, they look like tribal tattoos in the 90s.
They do.
I just wish, do you know what made more sense? Like some really nice, henna.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, especially with the eye on the palm. I was
bad
thinking,
tribal henna is basically what they did.
Yes. So basically she gets her bad tribal henna, and
and she basically becomes Persephone now. We've just given up on Beauty and the Beast, and we just
for sure we've
switched
moved
into Hades and Persephone.
Yes, we've moved out of Beauty and the Beast. We've moved into Persephone and Hades. So he gives her a magical bath too, so she's no longer covered in mud.
I do not remember that part.
Yeah, he just like, okay, we're gonna fix that. No more mud. And she's thinking, he's doing this to hurt Tamlin. I know what he's doing. I can see his 4D chest here. But of course, there's stuff going on with Rhys and Feyre that we don't really know about at this point. But rest assured, he is an absolute asshole about all of this, because that's kind of his MO. He's just an asshole generally, but is he an asshole we love? Yeah.
He's intended to be a frightening character. You're supposed to think of him as dangerous, and you're told about bad things he's done, but he's honestly pretty toothless, other than the roofing that happens soon.
Yeah. Let's get into that. So there's a household chores chapter. I don't think it was that great to have.
No, but if we're switching fairy tales again, this is literally from Cinderella.
Yeah, so
Cinderella has to pull lentils out of a fireplace, and guess what? Feyre has to do?
Yeah,
pick the lentils out
of Rhysand's fireplace. So basically, Lucian's mom helps her with a muddy hallway section, because she's just like, you really helped Lucian in that moment when he was being tortured by Rhysand. So I'm going to give you some clean water. And then Rhysand helps her with lentils. And then he magics the guards into not giving her any more chores, so we don't have to deal with any more of these chapters. And
thank God.
Yeah, thank God. And the chapter where Feyre gets all painted up is right after this. And then she gets drugged into dancing for the court. So she's given wine by Rhysand and then taken to the court, and she's all painted, and she's given this completely sheer almost dress. And here he is, Rhysand's playing again his 4D chess that no one can figure out, and Amarantha makes Rhysand shatter some lord of the summer court because he tried to escape. And so Feyre's just like, okay, he killed him out of mercy. So she's kind of starting to turn around, and maybe Rhysand isn't the bad guy, but also he's making me do this every night, be roofied and dance for I don't even know these people. Yeah. So,
and when we say roofied,
she's literally roofied.
Well, she's told way earlier in the story that fairy wine is going to be too much for her to handle, and now both her and Rhysand in the court under the mountain are just maybe just drink it every night. You don't need to remember any of this.
Yeah, he's
it's better if you don't.
Yeah, it's better if you not remember the fact that you're going to be dancing seductively.
But it's cool because he paints her all over so that if somebody touches her, she'll be able to tell. You know, because she can't tell when she's inebriated.
Yeah,
Right.
no, small wins, okay?
Yeah, very small. So the second child comes up, and she has to read a riddle and guess the number lever it corresponds to, or she'll be crushed, and Lucian will be crushed. And this kind of shrinking cube room situation.
Yeah.
And she can't do it because she doesn't know how to read, y'all. And so Roseanne communicates with her through the tattoo in her mind, and she's like,
brain powers.
yeah, just push this one lever. Okay, don't even think about it, just do this one. And that is how she manages to survive.
I thought this whole trial was so funny. I was laughing through the whole thing. I was like, of course she would have to read, of course. And she can't.
I find this task to be so wildly anticlimactic.
Oh,
it's
it was for sure.
She looks at it and she's like, I can't read. And he's like, just press this one.
Yeah.
That's the whole chapter.
It was a really simple chapter, I imagine, to write, because it's just I don't even have to think about what this riddle is because you can't read it, bitch.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't they didn't even describe. I don't know. The trial seemed really easy, but that's because...
Well, that's because Roseanne told her the answer.
Yeah, that's true.
So after this, she's just she has a near breakdown. She completely falls apart. And this is Roseanne appears again and licks her tears, which is a weird choice, and basically annoys her enough into not having a breakdown. He's just I'm going to be kind of a bitch now, and you're going to snap out of it because we don't have time for this. And she kind of recognizes this, but also kind of wonders if he knows this. And she's having a really hard time processing what the hell Roseanne is up to. But she still falls into a depression. No worries. And she kind of learns that the King of Hybern's annoyed with Amarantha, but she's still really depressed and sitting there in her little cube alone. And no worries, she's inspired by some music. Some music comes in through the pipes of, I guess there's a vent or whatever. And we learn about how this happens in the next book. So
I guess the music she's been grinding to didn't really do it for her.
No.
Well, she can't remember it.
I'm assuming this is some night court music that's really inspiring.
Not I'm in love with a stripper. But what if it was? That'd be amazing.
So, okay, she gets painted up again and hauled out to do the dancing. And at this point, Tamlin kind of finds her. And this is the first time he's been able to find her since she got on the mountain. And they go into a little hallway. I always imagine there's a curtain or whatever.
Oh,
But
I thought they were behind a door.
I don't even remember.
Okay.
They go into a hallway, a dark hallway. And this is when he has the opportunity to I don't know, maybe do something of meaning. But no, he chooses to just start making out with her. And she's like,
it was hot.
It was. She was like, I'm into this. Finally, Tamlin's here. He's going to make me feel better. And
it's heated. It's intense. It's passionate.
They have a passionate kiss. And at this point, though, Roseanne finds them. And he's just God damn.
Yeah.
Because it's just Tamlin is a man thinking with his dick in this moment. And I think also, what is he going to do against Amarantha, who's taken all his power? He has no ability to fight back. He's just I'm just going to take this moment with you, Farah, and we're going to grind against the wall. But Roseanne finds him anyway, and he fixes it. He kisses her in front of Amarantha, so it looks like the smudges on her paint are from him. So, because he's I can't let her know that Tamlin did this, otherwise she will freak the fuck out, and all of my work will be for naught. So he shows up later, in a funk, and explains himself to her, and it's basically his dad was killed by Tamlin's dad and Tamlin's brothers back in the day. And Amarantha is punishing him, and he's just been attempting to work Tamlin to a fury because, when the time comes, he knows that Tamlin's power is going to be the thing that kills Amarantha. So he's basically, shown Farah his hand here a little bit. I still don't think that she really believes him because, again, all the roofing and the fact that she's in, deep with Tamlin right now. She's just I'm 100% in with Tamlin, and I don't really know what you're up to, and I don't trust you, but... okay, I guess I'll accept the story. Third trial. The third trial comes up, and Amarantha's just stab these fairies.
Yeah, it's just stabbing some folks.
Yeah. And she's and she does. She stabs them. She stabs one, she stabs the other. It's really terrible. There's blood everywhere, and they die. And she's damn, that was hard. And then the third fairy is brought in, and the third fairy is Tamlin. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Gasp.
I know. Big gasp.
Who would have guessed?
I don't know. But then she kind of has this realization that Tamlin and Lucian have been speaking in code in front of her this entire time. And the code is that Tamlin has a heart of stone. I don't understand this, like literally at all.
This came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I thought it was part of the curse, I guess.
I have no idea, but he has a heart of stone. So she stabs him and he doesn't die. Apparently that heart of stone is real. So Amarantha proceeds to beat the shit out of Farah. Rhysand tries to kill Amarantha with a knife and totally fails. Like Amarantha just like swats him against the wall and it's just like, no, like he's like a fly to her. And then Farah comes up with the answer to the riddle. It is love. Love is the answer to the riddle. And then she dies. Like she literally just like her spine cracks, like her like head is all like messed up and she dies. And then, yes, her soul does fly into her.
Okay,
body.
I was like a little confused. I had to reread it for a part, but
no, yeah.
I wonder why she flew into Rhys's body.
Yeah, she flies into Rhys's body, y'all.
Foreshadowing for the next book, maybe?
Indeed. So her soul flies into Rhysand's body, and she can see like literally everything through his eyes. And she gets to watch Tamlin tear out Amarantha's throat as a beast.
Hell, yeah.
Yeah. And then all the High Lords, who are all gathered there, because literally like all of fairy kind is under this mountain with Amarantha, at least all the people of note, or the ones that she knows about, I should say, give up bits of themselves to Farah so that she can come back as a High Fae. Ta-da!
And she's saved.
She's saved. So she comes back.
So not only now is she a fairy, she is the most powerful and bestest fairy.
The most powerful, bestest fairy. She has bits and pieces of every High Lord, which means she has.
But we don't know that yet.
Find out. She has. There's stuff that's going to happen with her, and they're like, we don't know what's going to go on here. Like literally, you are the first person that this has happened to. Yeah. So wrapping up in the last chapter here, she is super haunted by the deaths, but she has sex with Tamlin anyway.
Boring.
Under the mountain, which I was like, that's a choice, but okay. She discusses with Rhysand why he helped her. Like, and he's like, I wanted to be on the side of right, Farah. And then Elena looks at her like weirdly stunned for a second. Like he's like, what? And then he like kind of gets his wings out and flies away. Or I think he winnows, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we don't know what that is.
Yeah, no idea what that is. He just kind of disappears. And then she just goes home with Tamlin, and they have this like skipping through the meadows, holding hands moment through the spring court. And
the curse is broken, and
the
beast
curse is broken.
Finally a man.
Everybody's happy.
We have mentioned that the masks are allowed to come off.
Yeah, that's true. The mask can come off.
So she finally sees his full boring face.
Yes, no more masks. None of those beautiful masks.
Yeah, I'm sure most of us are familiar with that moment in the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast where he's turning back into a man and you're getting like all excited, and then you see his man face and you're like, oh,
he's just boring and blonde.
Yeah, all that work for that.
The disappointment I felt.
I was so relieved when I grew up and I found out that a bunch of other kids had that same feeling.
I was really hoping for something else. I don't know what it was exactly, but it wasn't that.
Yeah.
They made the beast too hot.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I think like this book is super weird. I have a lot of thoughts about it just in general as being like the theme being you're a dumb, stupid human, Farah, and you're only going to get over it by not being that anymore.
She's literally the dumbest. She doesn't know how to read.
Yeah, I know. She's like the stupidest human that they could have found. And then they're like, no worries. We're going to make you super, super powerful and one of us, but you have to be a fae to do it. So I don't know how I feel about a lot of the themes in this book, but am I here for the story and am I here for like what happens down the road? Yes.
I really struggled with this because of the complete lack of agency of the main character. She just really lets stuff happen to her in this book and puts up with so much shit from the first guy who was ever nice to her, which I understand that the other books in the series essentially discuss that or try to counter that and show that that is indeed the point. Like everyone that you hear talk about this book series is like, oh, number 2 is where it gets really good.
And it does. Number 2 is where it gets.
Yeah, sure. I mean, now reading number 2. I mean, I just finished number 2. I liked it way better than number 1. But I still liked ACOTAR. But I also read it right after I read Fourth Wing or Iron Flame, and I'm not a huge fan of those books. So like this was a breath of fresh air. I love world building, even if it's like bad. And like lots of descriptions of stuff. So even though this was like really slow at the beginning, I was fine with it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. She's like very passive in the beginning. And then magically just like decides to have some self-esteem and some self-confidence. And then she just like magically gets good at everything. But that happens more in the second book.
Yeah. I do think like it kind of gets into her self-hatred in this book. But I think the self-hatred like really skyrockets in the second because of the PTSD that she's going to go through.
Yeah.
But like her PTSD in this book is just like, yeah, I'm struggling to survive with my family, and now I'm finally being shown like what it is to be loved finally by the first man who's going to ever show me some love. And I mean, I do think that's a very deliberate choice by Sarah J. Maas. Like, she's like, this is the first man who's ever like stepped in and like given her any attention whatsoever that's like, you know, good.
Yeah.
And not just like a release like the Isaac kid from the beginning, and given her something so that she can stop thinking about surviving. And I totally like kind of see the way that she would have fallen in love with that immediately. Like,
yeah, I mean, you always think your first love is like the most beautiful, passionate, and then you look back and you're like, wow, I was so dumb in 17.
Yes. So we understand why she fell in love with him, but why did he fall in love with her?
I know. I think
that's a good
too.
question.
I was just having a thought.
Thank
Do we
God,
think
a human that can break this curse.
Yes. Yes.
Do we think he
100%.
actually loved her?
That's a really good question. Did he really love her? Or did he feel beholden to her because she did all these things?
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
convinced himself to love her.
I think
That's
you
what
might
I
be
think
right.
so, too.
Yeah, because he acted so weird about it at the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
like he acted weird towards her and almost like reticent to even try, when in fact falling in love with her is the whole point of
Right.
ending the curse. Like, he has to do this. So I do feel like he was just like pushed into it. You have to fall in love with this woman to do what you need to do to save your people.
Yeah.
And I think like there's a lot of like, you know, he obviously didn't want to at the beginning, and then he kind of just did, but then it was like a protective thing. He
I
needs
was
to
going to say,
protect.
I think he found the version of her that he could love,
Yeah.
which is like, well, she's, you know, now that she's not starving, she's hot, and she does what I say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's an interesting book in that way, I think, because it's just like, it is the whole, I'm going to survive, I'm going to protect, I'm being pushed into a situation I really don't want to have any part of. And then I'm going to tell myself that things are okay, and it's all going to work out, and I'm in love with this man, I'm in love with this woman. But in fact, you're not at all.
Yeah.
It's just the situation that you were pushed into. And I do think this book is interesting in the theme that it's giving in that sort
Yeah,
of
in that
way.
aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, in that aspect, I really think this book is cool. The weirdness with the Fae and the humans, I'm like, I don't really get where this is going a little bit. Like, I kind of know, like, it's kind of pushing towards, like, we can all live together in happy harmony.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe, if we would all just, like, get along. but it is a little bit pushing too hard on, like, humans are assholes and Fae are beautiful,
yeah,
wonderful
just get over
people.
1,000 years of slavery.
Right.
I
Super
know.
easy.
It's just
I don't know
like,
what your problem
you
is.
were oppressed for like literally the beginning of time,
But
and
only like the bad Fae did that.
and now you live in like you live in basically poverty.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, she even says in one of the books that there's like no cities left in the mortal lands.
Yeah, she does. I think
yeah.
that's the second one.
and I'm just like, and then she's like, what did we do for you, you Fae? Like, well, yeah, you said that you built the courts, you built the mansions, you built all of this opulence for these people, and then and then they're like, humans, you weak, sad, pathetic, foolish humans. And so this is where the book, and I'm like, I am not so much on with that part, but I do really like the whole PTSD stuff and the first love stuff, and trying to figure out all of that. I think that's pretty cool. I wish Feyre had more to do in the first part of this book, but you know.
Yeah, any personality would be nice.
Yeah,
That would have been great.
But
Yeah, if she was actually good at painting.
well, that's just everyone's headcanon. Okay, so speaking
Okay,
of personalities,
So, Emma, which character do you think you are?
well, at first,
Who do you see yourself in?
I mean, at first I was thinking Nesta because I'm a huge bitch to my sister, but
Sorry, sister, whoever you are.
yeah, she's actually really nice to me, and I'm rude to her. But then I was like, wait, I also am bad at reading, and I also compensate by painting, and I'm not so great at that either. So I think I'm Feyre, not to be main character. What about you guys?
I would say of all the characters, I would compare myself to the Surreal. I like bones. I like cloaks. I'm pretty bad at lying, and I want to know all the hot gossip.
Yeah, I agree with all those things, Feyre and Zuriel. And for me, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm Elaine. I'm not for the whole like I'm simple and want to be beautiful all the time, but the fact that
Be
I
an
just
idiot
want-
with me.
Yeah, I really just want to empty my mind for a second, go sit in my garden and disassociate in peace, which I think she is awesome at. And that way I endeavor to be more like her.
I'm here for it.
So that is ACOTAR. That's book 1 of the ACOTAR series, and we are going to be back here with more ACOTAR.
Eventually.
Yeah, we're going to get there one of these days.
So
I'm currently
long.
trying to write my notes on the second book, and I had a crisis this week and was like, I'm done with this.
I think
burning the pod to the ground.
Yeah, Aka Math might be ruining Tabitha's life. We'll see what happens.
We'll get there.
Yeah, even though I really like that book. I'm looking forward to that one.
I do too. I really liked it. It was fun.
So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And we hope to see you next time.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.